What is going on, my friends? Welcome in Tuesday morning edition of the Daily Dime here at FTNFantasy.com. My name is Zac Graham, aka Kawaisenberg DFS, running solo today for the NBA Cup Final. Very excited for this game tonight. Thunder and the Bucks out there in Las Vegas. We'll talk about it. Got a little 3-pick play here on Underdog this morning. And of course, yesterday, Gershon Yabusele. We talked about the minutes upside, the upside of him potentially starting at the 5. Neither of those things came to pass. Doesn't even start. 18 minutes against the Hornets with no Embiid. Philly gets the win. Limited LaMelo on the other side. And of course, the Yabusele rebounds prop was the only thing that kept us from the 6 for 6 on the prize pick side of things last night. Tough break. Tough break there. But the number goes up in the prize picks account. We'll take that. Came up short on Underdog yesterday. So again, we'll talk the props here this morning. We'll talk the DFS right showdown slate. So I'm not a huge fan of showdown, but when we get an NBA Cup final like this, and especially no games tomorrow, definitely playing this slate. Let's go ahead and jump in. Looks like NFL news. Dorian Thompson-Robinson will start for the Browns in Week 16. So anybody who had Jameis and kind of been riding that roller coaster in your season longs, that's tough. But let's go ahead and get into it here. We don't need to stay too long just with one game. If you are watching on the YouTube here live or on the replay, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. It helps us grow the Daily Dime, as does liking and reposting if you're watching on Twitter. Couple promos going on today. I don't have the pick 6 picks here this morning. Obviously, you can use the props, the underdog props that I talk about over there on pick 6. Look like there's a 100% profit boost over there for your NBA entry today on pick 6. So of course, check that out there over at DraftKings with the pick 6 product. They got a pick 6 app as well. And on Underdog, we've got a 50% profit boost token for NBA tonight. So I've already used that on this 3-pick play here this morning. Let's talk about it. We'll bring up the tool here at FTN Fantasy. Again, this is the NBA Prize Picks tool. But you can, of course, use this for not just prize picks, not just Underdog, but any pick'em site. Because if those lines vary, right, we've got the user line column here where you can enter the different line from a different site in that little box right there and see what the tool spits out in terms of a win percentage. So we're actually going to talk about this J-Dub prop here at the top, but I want to start on the Bucks side of things here this morning from a prop perspective. And I want to talk about Giannis, and specifically, I spent a good deal of time this morning looking through the rebound prop offerings on Underdog and seeing where we could potentially attack this Oklahoma City team that is the dregs of the league when it comes to hitting the glass. So looking at a couple of the full game rebound props for the Bucks, you can see in the tool, if you're at ftnfantasy.com right now, that the projection model here does not like the full game rebound overs. We do have, for what it's worth, 5-point spread here in favor of the Thunder. Not too surprising there. Just a 216 implied total. But I want to attack this Thunder team on the glass. So how are we going to do that, right? We could go against the model. And Giannis set at 12 rebounds over there on prize picks. I believe 11.5 on Underdog last time I looked, but you're getting like a 0.84x on that number. 0.89x on the higher than 11.5 rebounds for Giannis. And again, the tool the projection has him for 10.2 rebounds here tonight. I think that's a little bit low, given the minutes that we expect, given the matchup. But, I tend to trust the projection model here. But so how I want to attack them on the boards is with Giannis, but going to his first quarter rebounds prop. And it's set at 3.5 right now here on Underdog. And as I get a refresh here on Underdog, I see that one of my picks has now changed. So I'm glad I got it in early. That was just in the last 10 minutes. We'll get there. So Giannis rebounds. And I want to go higher than the 3.5 line that is posted right now. And let's talk about it. So if you watch these knockout games, right, quarterfinals, which were at home, and then the semifinals in Vegas on Saturday, Giannis, 10 minutes, 39 seconds in the first quarter against the Magic, 11 minutes and 9 seconds against the Hawks in Vegas on Saturday. Now he's over this number of 3.5 rebounds in the first quarter in just 10 of his 23 games, but he does average 3.7 rebounds in 10.2 minutes per first quarter across that 23-game sample so far this season. Oklahoma City, on the other hand, like I mentioned, just giving it up so sweet to opponents on the glass. The Thunder have given up the second most rebounds per game to opponents in the NBA this season. Only behind the Wizards. Only behind the Wizards. And if you think, if we can get some offensive rebound props on Underdog at some point today, I will want to look at those as well, because Oklahoma City dead last in offensive rebounds conceded to opponents per game at 12.9. It's like a full 0.7 offensive rebounds per game higher than the next lowest team, which I think is Washington. So again, the full rebound prop for Giannis, 11.5, 0.89x. So if you want to attack the full game prop, and I think that's fine to do if you think this game stays close. It's just a 5-point spread. But Oklahoma City has just kind of made mincemeat of the teams that they've even in the knockout rounds, right? Their only loss in group play was to a shorthanded Spurs team, which was uncharacteristic of the Thunder to slip up like that against. It was a Spurs team without Wembanyama and without Devin Vassell and without Jeremy Sohan. And they took the L there in San Antonio that night. Outside of that, the Thunder have waltzed through this cup. And of course, in the knockout rounds, make it look easy against Dallas, held Luka and held Kyrie to 33 points combined. And looks like Underdog as well, going to give out some bonus cash for the NBA Cup final. Let me just write it back. So Underdog just putting out this tweet. We're adding $10 to the pot for every PRA totaled by SGA and Giannis in the NBA Cup final tonight. So you can go to Underdog's Twitter, follow them, repost that tweet, and reply with your Underdog username. So it looks like $10 for every point, rebound, and assist by SGA and Giannis tonight. That could end up being about $1,000. Especially if the game stays close. So you can go enter over there. And again, if you haven't signed up at Underdog yet, promo code FTN will get you a deposit match bonus. So again, getting back to what I was saying about the Thunder, are we surprised if they come out here and maybe not blow out the Thunder, or the Bucks rather, but kind of hold them at arm's length? I'm not. But again, if this is a single-digit game into the fourth quarter, in terms of the margin, you're getting full minutes out of Giannis, out of Shea, and probably out of J-Dub. We'll talk about J-Dub, like I mentioned. But so if you want to go to that full rebound prop, again, I'm fine with it, but I would just take it up to the ladder it up, right? If you're on underdog and you see that 11.5 with the 0.89x, the little arrows to the left of that number, you can ladder it up. Like over 13.5 is at 1.32x. Over 15.5 is 2.54x. So again, like the over 3.5 first quarter rebounds is what I'm attacking here this morning, because I want a piece of the Bucks on the boards here tonight. That is one thing from what really kept the semifinal matchup against the Rockets for the Thunder. What kept that remotely close was the work that the Rockets did on the glass. Out-rebounded the Thunder by 6. 19 offensive rebounds. OKC had 4. So over 3.5 first quarter rebounds for Giannis is where I'm starting here this morning. So let's talk about these other two that we're pairing. And again, let me just start with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The pick that I had in my entry here this morning that I used my profit boost on was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, higher than 5.5 assists. We've got him projected for 6.3 assists tonight in the FTN fantasy model. You can see it here on the first page of the tool. But now, Underdog has this 0.92x. So, again, like, if you use that 50% profit boost, I think it's still palatable to take this. And we do get a little bit of a correlation boost in the tool by pairing this with the third pick that I'm going to talk about. And you can also ladder this. I think, again, even with the projection of 6.3, I would be fine taking the higher than 6.5 for 1.42x if you want to get that extra payout boost. But with the token that you should have in your account this morning, that 50% boost token, I'm still fine to take this at the 5.5 at 0.92x. Shai is over this 5.5 assist number in 13 of 25 games this season, so not a strong lean if we're game log watching. It does lean towards the over. Over in 10 of 15 games this season, though, when he plays 34 more minutes. We got him projected for 37.5 minutes here tonight, and maybe that's a half minute hot there, but because he's gone over 37 in each of the knockout games so far. And so let's, as we're discussing this, let's bring in the pick that I kind of teased at the beginning there. It's tops in the model right now. It's Jalen Williams, higher than 22.5 points. And another reason why I think we can still slot in this SGA assist number at 0.92 is because the J-Dub 22.5 points, which is where we're going right here. He's projected for 25.8 in the model this morning. We're getting 1.07x on that number. So it's taking our standard 3 pick, right, which is usually the 6x. It's 5.9 here. So I'm still fine with that. So talking a little bit about the J-Dub pick. He's averaging 21.7 points per game, but in 32.1 minutes per game this season. He's over this number in just 11 of 25 games. So again, not a strong lean, but contrary to the Shai pick that we're taking here with the assist, it's a slight lean to the under if you're just game log watching. But J-Dub, and again, I've attacked him before. I think it was in the quarterfinal game last Wednesday. I think they played the Mavs. It was Wednesday. It was Tuesday or Wednesday. And we attacked this J-Dub prop. But in these knockout games, only 18 and 20 points respectively. But he's shot 16 of 41 from the field. And this is a guy who's slightly over 50% on the season. And he played 34 minutes in 2 group stage games, right? So we can kind of look at the group stage games, especially the competitive ones, to get a little bit of an idea of how these coaches might, tighten their rotations, especially now that we're in the final. The other 2 games in the group stage that he didn't hit 34 minutes, he was on pace for that number, but lost time in the blowout. One was Utah for sure, and I think the other one was the Pelicans. Either way, He was on pace for about 33 and a half minutes against Dallas in the quarterfinal game. He lost about a minute to garbage time at the end of that one. But then he played damn near 39 minutes against the Rockets on Saturday. 38 minutes, 41 seconds to be exact in that one. And getting a second rotation in the second quarter to close the first half was key to him getting to that number. So I'll be looking for that in the second quarter. We want to see that second rotation for J-Dub to really be feeling good about this in the middle of the game. Of course, if he starts hot, we'll feel good regardless. But that's what we want to see to get him up into these upper 30s tonight instead of hovering around 34, 35. Still feel okay if he's in that 34, 35 range. And this Bucks team is not too different from the one that we saw last year. And in the two times that these teams played last season, he was very efficient and very successful, but limited by blowout in both games. Last season, they played March 24th. That was a blowout loss for the Thunder, but he had 18 points in just 29 minutes, 8 of 15 from the floor. And then they played a couple weeks later on the 12th of April. That was probably the penultimate game of the regular season. 17 points in just 27 minutes, massive blowout win. So the recent history for J-Dub against this team is good. Again, I think it's fair to expect him to greatly exceed that minutes average on the season of 32.1. And we just saw him get almost 39 minutes in the semifinal on Saturday. So again, he's projected for 25.8 points in his 37 minutes in the FTN model this morning. So even if you take that down a minute or two, that number is still going to point you to a higher than selection here on the points prop of 22.5. And like, let's take it down to 34 minutes, right? Because that's where he was, got 34 minutes in two of those group stage games, was on pace for 34 minutes in the other two where he lost time to blowout. In the 9 games that he's played 34 or more minutes this season, he's over this 22.5 number in 6 of those 9. So pairing this with the SGA assist, you can see in the tool here just a slight 0.2% correlation bonus, but it certainly is not hurting us to pair J-Dub's points with SGA's assist here. Because, I mean, clearly teammates, one high usage assist guy to a guy you're taking the points on just on the surface feels good, but then you dive into the actual numbers here. Jalen Williams, 80% of his made threes this season have been assisted, and a healthy 45.7% of his 2-point attempts as well. So like 53.8% is nowhere near tops in the league in terms of your assisted field goals made. But for a guy who is a high usage player himself, that's still pretty healthy. Like compared to SGA, he's on one end of the extreme, right? As an MVP candidate, just 22.8% of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's made field goals are assisted this year, right? Part of that is that he rarely plays with somebody else who's going to be creating as much as him. And he's one of the most elite ISO players in the world right now. But you can see the significant gap there in terms of percent of field goals, made field goals that are assisted, both from 3 and inside the arc. Like SGA's 22.8% number is second lowest among qualifying players. Like only Elfrid Payton was lower, and he's already back out of the league. So like, again, I like pairing these two players together, especially because we're getting most of that multiplier back that we're losing on SGA's assists. We're getting that back with the J-Dub points. But if you don't want to pair these two guys together, then I think I'm probably like, give me the SGA over points. Because if J-Dub isn't going over his number, SGA probably is. He's set at 32.5 here. Like his points prop, I got to take him out of the tool to be able to see his points prop. It doesn't show up on the first page. So like we do have a slight lean to the over, projected for 33.3 points tonight. But again, I prefer the pairing of J-Dub and SGA here, with the SGA higher than 5.5 assists, J-Dub higher than 22.5 points, 1.07x on J-Dub, and 0.92 right now on the SGA number. So you get that 5.9x on your 3-pick entry, And you can use that 50% profit boost token that Underdog has so graciously given us here today. So that's my 3-pick entry here this morning. Now, let's talk a little bit about these DFS slates, right? Because I'm not a huge fan of the showdown, but I am interested in playing this game here tonight. We'll start with DraftKings as I typically do. Get a sip here real quick. And again, if you're watching this live, fire any questions you have into the live chat here on YouTube. If you have props you're eyeing, more than happy to discuss them here this morning. So, on this showdown slate, it's really hard to just fade the raw points that you think Giannis is going to put up tonight. He's 13K in the utility spot on DK. There's enough values that are going to play tonight where like he is just very, very close to a lock for me. But if you're gonna fade, like, you could go down to Dame. He's 10-8 though. Like, I can get J-Dub for $400 cheaper than Dame. And this is not the matchup to play guards against. This Thunder gauntlet, like, and not just in the backcourt. Like Isaiah Hartenstein's just he's a good rim protector as well. So if I'm going to fade Giannis, I'm probably just going to build for a Thunder onslaught here. But either way, if you put Giannis in, you can get to 2 of the 3 like highest priced OKC guys on DK in SGA, J-Dub, and Hartenstein. But it does leave you with like few options that I think won't be chalky. Because I think Giannis plus 2 of those top 3 Thunder and then mixing in your other 3 utility spots with some of the values, that feels like a pretty chalky build to me here tonight. Like, okay, can we change it up and go to a cheap, like a value captain option and get a ton of the raw points into our utility spots and hope that that captain, has a ceiling game? You can. I think it is tougher to get to a Milwaukee value option. That's certainly not a hot take. So like the Thunder ones that I might consider for a captain spot are probably the other guys rounding out this lineup in Lou Dort and Case and Wallace. Dort 6K in the utility spot. Wallace 4,800. Right? So if you're taking those guys in the captain spot, 7,200 for Case and Wallace and 9K for Dort. You can build some interesting lineups like that. Again, very low probability, I think, just given the rotations tightening here in the final, right? This is essentially a game 7. It falls short, of course, of the importance of like the true NBA postseason game 7, but like we're here now, right? Thunder and Bucks. We're on the precipice of those big paydays. So it's tough to get to these value captains, but Dort and Wallace would be my 2. And like those are probably, I would think, the higher, like if we're looking at guys that are sub, like Dort is at 6K in the utility, 6K and below on DraftKings. Like those are probably the 2 higher owned captain options. If I'm going to somebody on the Bucks side, probably Gary Trent Jr. 5,400 in the captain slot. And I'm actually staring at it. That's the last thing I was messing with here before we went live. You can build a pretty strong lineup if you take the chance on Gary Trent in the captain spot and him getting, 20 plus DK points. You'd have to get hot, but like I prefer him to Torian Prince, to Andre Jackson Jr., to AJ Green, right? Derry Bird, as he's known now. Like, I prefer Trent because I think he brings the best combination. Like, he hasn't been consistent with this, but of those options that the Bucks have, Trent has been above average in terms of his perimeter defense this year. And like AJ Green, probably the better pure scorer of late, at least with like the recency bias. But I think Trent has the defensive acumen and the offensive upside to where, like, of that group of four, he's my favorite if I'm going there. And that holds true whether you're taking him in the captain slot or not. If you're going to a much cheaper bench value on the OKC side, like Isaiah Joe, 2.8K, makes a lot of sense. And I think he will pull the most ownership in that bunch. You know, him, Kenrich Williams at 2,400, Aaron Wiggins down to 2K flat. And those guys are in play. I would be very surprised if those guys just DNP CD tonight. I don't think we're going to see Dagnall get that tight with the rotation, but we've seen those guys get squeezed, especially Aaron Wiggins, here in the knockout rounds. So Isaiah Joe, 2.8K is the strongest option there for me. And then like Cason Wallace, who has played, his role has been more solidified in these knockout games. 4.8K. The direct pivot off him to me, like, he's going to be chalky, I think, for good reason, but the direct pivot there is the 4.4K for Alex Caruso. Like, if you saw some Cason Wallace foul trouble, or, you know, knock on wood, tweaks his ankle and has to miss a rotation or something like that, like, Caruso would be the direct benefactor. You could pair those guys, but, you know, let me pull up the rotation from the last game as well. Those guys don't seem, like, off the top of my head, they don't seem to correlate really well. Yeah, I mean, those guys, they shared the floor for like 3 minutes in the early parts of the fourth quarter, actually closed the last like minute 15 of that game as Hartenstein went to the bench against Houston. But on the surface, if you're running 150 tonight, or even maybe 20 max, like, maybe I'm not setting 100% rule to not pair those guys together, but in one lineup, that's not something I would be actively trying to not pair Caruso and Wallace. And then on the FanDuel side, of course, it's a different puzzle with the, you know, MVP, star, and pro spots with your two utilities, and the salaries not fluctuating when you put guys into those spots. So like Giannis 17K, SGA 16K over there. One of them is a must. One, absolutely, positively. You cannot, like, I don't know how many times out of a million we would get a winning lineup on FanDuel that doesn't have one of those guys in it at all. The number is really low. And like, I would also not put, if you fade one of those two spends, which you don't have to do on FanDuel. If you fade one of those two spends, though, don't put them lower than the star spot. The one that you have, don't, you know, if you want to put J-Dub or Isaiah Hartenstein, or maybe you fade Giannis, you play Dame, or you're building, right, you're throwing one lineup into the big contest over there, the main GPP. I think it's a 555 entry tonight, right? And you want to say maybe Giannis, right, turns his ankle, knock on wood. We're never looking for an injury, but then you play a Bobby Portis up there, right? I'm still getting SGA in my MVP or my star spot, and most likely my MVP slot. And on the other side, right, you fade Shea, get J-Dub up there, get Hartenstein up there. The minutes are just going to be too concentrated for the main guys tonight to really get too cute for me on FanDuel. And you can absolutely play both. Like it's not a hot take. I lean Giannis over Shea at the MVP spot. OKC has more ways, it feels like to me. They have more ways to beat the Bucks. There are more game scripts, more avenues for them to hurt Milwaukee than vice versa. Right? Like maybe Chris Middleton finally is efficient from the field tonight. And maybe that, I'm hoping, my best ball teams are certainly hoping that his decision making in that last game is not a trend that's going to emerge. Like some of the, not only the turnover, I know the turnover off the inbounds play with 38 seconds left or whatever was not great in that game. It kept Atlanta hanging around. It gave them a breath of life when the game should have been over. But the initial decision for Middleton to cross half court, allow himself to get trapped, and then call the team's final timeout with 38 seconds left was horrendous. But maybe he catches fire tonight. Right, and I think he's in play on both sites at his price. Not a priority. But in my FanDuel placeholder this morning, I do have Giannis and Shea in there. And Middleton made the cut for me in a utility slot at 9,500. But again, who gets them there? If Giannis has to take a seat for whatever reason, leave the game, then Bobby Portis makes a lot of sense as somebody who could have a big game statistically. Again, if Giannis goes out, then I mean that this game just completely blows out. Because this is not a good Bobby Portis spot. He can come in and have good fantasy efficiency, but I just don't think the minutes ceiling is going to be there. So again, you can play both Giannis and SGA on FanDuel, and there's more than enough value. Right? You've got Isaiah Joe at 7K. You've got Gary Trent Jr. on the other side, 7.5K. Those are probably my two favorite cheapies of anybody below that 8K range. And maybe even below that 9K range where Cason Wallace is. Because Caruso 8,500. Right? Again, in one lineup, I'm looking to avoid pairing Caruso and Wallace together. So if I like Wallace, I'm probably not going to Caruso at 8,500. Then you've got Andre Jackson at 8K, Taurean Prince 7,500, Gary Trent 7,500, Derek Bird, right? AJ Green for the uninitiated 7K, Isaiah Joe 7K. So I think of those guys 9K and below, below 9K, because I prefer Cason Wallace to that entire list. But let's say Caruso and below at 8,500. And Joe at 7K and Trent 7,500. Probably my two favorite picks there. And again, you've got Dort at 10.5. Portis at 11K, right? It's just really tough to get there unless you're fading Giannis and taking that chance. Hartenstein 12K, J-Dub 13.5, Dame 14K. Again, I want at least one of Giannis and Shea. And then you got to think about, when you're constructing these FanDuel lineups, if you fade one of those guys, who's going to pick up the slack? So, okay, almost 35 minutes here. Solo stream, one game slate. But I'm very excited for this game here tonight. Just as a basketball fan, this is the closest thing that we're going to get to not just playoff basketball, but a Game 7 type of environment. Sans one of the teams being at home, right? So we'll see how the crowd is tonight. But I expect the play on the court to be very, very intense. And I'm excited to watch it. So once again, I think on DraftKings Pick 6, you've got a profit boost. Underdog, you've got a profit boost tonight. One more time to recap the picks on Underdog. The 3-pick play we had in here this morning. Giannis, higher than 3.5 first quarter rebounds. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, higher than 5.5 assists. Jalen Williams, higher than 22.5 points. And we used our 50% profit boost token on that 3-pick entry. And again, our FTN Fantasy subscribers will be talking the DFS slates throughout the day leading up to lock. 8:30 p.m. Eastern tip-off here tonight out in Vegas. So So we'll be in the NBA DFS channel, and any other in the Pick'em Games channel, we'll post any other props that we find throughout the day. Maybe we'll look at some prize picks things, the field goal attempts, things like that we have in the prize picks tool here at FTN Fantasy. Again, if you haven't yet, like the video, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, whether you're watching live or on the replay. Like and repost over there on Twitter if that's where you are tuning in. No Daily Dime tomorrow because there's no NBA games, but main slate matchup show on the NFL side. Alex will be tackling that Wednesday evening, and then Alex and myself back here Thursday morning. Big NBA slate, getting back into things on Thursday. So I will see you all here then, same time, same place on Thursday. Enjoy your Tuesday, everybody. I'll try to do the same, and I'll see you back here on Thursday for another edition of the FTN Daily Dime. Goodbye.